Another edition of Dynamics Fortnite Fridays.
where we cover everything Dynamics great and small.
Whoa, look at that. We've got Virtual Dan today.
Yeah, exactly. It's like I'm doing modern Dan. It's like so
Modern Avatar Dan.
modern Avatar Dan. I like it. I think it kind of looks that way too, right? And it's like I couldn't find that color jacket or shirt, so I think that works for me. But hey, you know what? We have the leap year edition, right? This February on this
That is
show.
true. That's coming up
Yeah,
in about a week.
the 29th. Yep,
Yeah.
yep. So, which means spring is coming soon, and I kind of have dad jokes that are kind of springish, kind of
Oh, a
thing.
little themed.
So,
Okay. All right. Well,
not
hit it.
quite theme, close enough, close
Hit me
enough.
with it.
Okay, so actually, there's two. There's two Bards. So, okay, what is brown and sticky?
Stick.
A stick, nailed it. So, okay, but another one is the same thing. I thought that was so bad that I just had to do it,
Had to
right?
do it. All right. All
I
right.
had to do it. Okay, now this one is kind of in the same theme, but maybe a little harder. Why do bees have sticky hair? The theme of the day is stick.
What's, what was it?
It's like the answer is they use honeycombs. Isn't that?
Oh,
I did that one. That one tickled me. I really like that one, so I had to do two.
honeycomb. That's actually
Okay.
okay. All right.
Yeah,
All
yeah.
right.
Honeycombs. Yeah. Okay. What do you got for me?
All right. Well, we've been doing some work on the house, and I went and hired a contractor and gave him a whole list of things I wanted to have done, and went to work. I came back at the end of the day, and he told me he was finished, and I paid him and looked around, and only half the work was done. Couldn't figure out why. Then I looked at his business card and found out that he only does odd jobs.
Oh God, that is terrible.
Isn't it awful?
I really like that one. So, all right, our content. The content's not going to be as good as that joke, but
Well,
hopefully it's
no,
good today.
never. Right,
So,
right.
all right, what do you got for me, Bart?
All right. Well, Power Platform news first, as usual. First up, we have a new Copilot. Copilots just keep multiplying like rabbits, but we've got a new Copilot for assistance in filling out the forms of a model-driven app. So model-driven apps are pretty much forms and views, and on those forms, we now have Copilot assistance. Every field that is on there, Copilot will suggest some things, and you can just say, "Yep, that looks great," or you can edit it a little bit. And anyway, it's going to be even easier to work with those forms with the new Copilot in your model-driven apps. Not to be outdone, Canvas apps got their own Copilot. It's a little different in that it's really just text boxes with the Canvas apps, and it looks more like the Word Copilot kind of extension showing up, and this only works in the browser on both of these, not in the app experience, but in the browser, we allow it to pop up that little window. You can put just a little bit of stuff in there and say, all right, generate my response, and you can edit it and make it shorter, and add tone to it, whatever you want to do. So it's a little bit different in the experience, but another Copilot to make filling out the actual data in these various apps that you built a little easier for your users. For those who are into the governance capabilities, this is a big step forward if you need to start forcing proper ALM to happen in your Power Platform environment strategy, and that you can take every environment in your chain that's not the dev environment, and you can now set a setting at the environment level that says, in this environment, block unmanaged customizations to force people to do the work in dev and put it into a managed solution through your DevOps pipeline to deploy everywhere else. So that's, again, big step forward. Admins can set this setting, and that changes what the users are able to do. And it doesn't just block the ability to import, it also affects things when you are working in the kind of app itself. So, like if you were trying to create a new thing, like a new app or a new table or a new form, that you have all those things blocked as well. So nicely done, Microsoft. Glad to see that we have added that as a new governance concept. And this one is available in all environments. It does not have to be a managed environment to be able to add this blocking. Power Automate Desktop came out with their February update, and this is a pretty small update. The biggest thing is picture-in-a-picture is available. I think I talked about this last time. I didn't actually see it in the app, and then the February one came out, and I now see it. That if you go to the properties of one of your desktop flows, there's a property you can set that says run in picture-in-a-picture, and it will allow you to bring up this little picture-in-a-picture window for those attended flows. Of course, the unattended ones just run in the background on some other device. The other thing is PowerFX in desktop flows supports interpolated strings. I'm not actually 100% sure what that means, even when reading the description, and I didn't take the time to go do all the research. So if you like to use interpolated strings, you can now do it. I'll just leave it at that. Do you know what that is, Dan?
It's like I know what an interpolation is, but it's like it would just be a guess at the best.
All right, I'm with you. I know what interpolation means too, but
yeah.
All right.
But you know what I'm doing right now while you're still presenting, I'm looking it up.
Okay, well you can answer it definitively for us in just a few minutes then. Good. I had not actually heard of the Power Up program until this post came out, so it's news to me, and if it's news to you and it will benefit your organization, great that there is a program called the Microsoft Power Up program, and it is a self-paced upskilling program to help all those people within your organization who need to get smart on Power Platform, have a curriculum to follow, and access to a comprehensive development environment to do it, access to some things like App in a Day workshops that partners put on without having to go through any more rigmarole, that just take advantage, broadcast it if it's going to help your user base in some way. These last two are actually blogs that are not put together on the official Microsoft blog site, but I thought they were kind of interesting blogs in terms of capabilities, so I wanted to bring them forward. This one is a little walkthrough of all the things that you can put together in Power Apps to help the makers find answers. And it starts with having the virtual agent be able to just look across, knowledge repositories that are either internal with your own wiki or knowledge that you have gathered in your own organization, plus any Microsoft documentation that we put together, so you can sort of customize that. And then it should help you look through whatever else you might give it access to outside of just the sort of normal documentation across your knowledge. So I kind of combined those two. And then the last is you can have it understand which people are advisors and have you've either nominated or they've been selected because the platform noticed they did a lot of stuff and asked them if they'd be willing, and they opted into the program. Then it will present a list of advisors within this virtual agent to allow you to pick the right one. It'll start a Teams conversation or send them an email. So I thought this was actually a pretty cool thing, so I thought I would share it with everyone. The other one I thought was even more powerful for folks who are using Power Pages. So in Power Pages, most of the data that you expose on a Power Page is usually stored in Dataverse because that's the built-in data that you've already got a security construct to expose and give the kind of portal logged on users access to what they should have. Not that you can't do it through other data sources, but that's sort of the most popular because it's the easy button. Well, if you do that and you make no other changes other than just expose it, one thing you'll notice is that on all the data records that get manipulated that come into Dataverse, you'll have all the correct audit history for who made what change to what data field on what date time for all of your internal employees who are interacting with that data. But everything else will just show that the portal user was the one who did that update. Well, there is a fairly easy way to do a couple of configuration steps. This doesn't require custom code. You just create a couple of new lookup fields. Then you go in and you configure the entity form metadata on the one for update and the modified by. And then you come in on the created by and you just change the additional settings on the created by one to associate the current portal user. And at the end of the day, you'll end up getting modified by and created by contact records in your audit history for what the portal's service account did. You'll see that extra metadata show up so that you'll know what actual logged on user made what change to what data record. So if that's important to you, I thought that one was certainly worth a quick walkthrough of how to do. I've only got a couple more things that are actually customer engagement specific. So if you enable Copilot for Service, and if you use our customer service module, I highly recommend you do because it's included with our service, that one of the things that you're going to want to do is define whether Copilot is actually helping your agents or not, and how are you going to measure that? And you're going to measure it with time efficiency, with relevance, with helpfulness, lots of different things, agent satisfaction, customer satisfaction, ROI, many things that you might do. And I thought it was just a nice blog to talk through what things might you want to try to measure kind of before and after, or run two parallel groups as you're trying to test and figure out, is Copilot for Service actually doing what I want it to do? And is it giving me the value that I was hoping to get out of it, so that I either turn it on for all users and say I can't live without it, or I say, you know what, this is just getting in people's way. We're doing better without it. And hopefully that's not the case, but it was, I thought, a well done article to talk people through it. And the other one is just that in our new wave that is now available in preview for the sales module, so any of your environments that are test environments or dev environments that you've turned on the Wave 1 bits, there is a new modern single overview page in the settings of the Sales Hub to make it a little more streamlined to discover the settings and know what settings you have configured, whether it's on or off or any other of the settings that you might want to turn on, all from one spot that has an integrated search and all kinds of other things, to just be able to hit this one page, and all the rest of that navigation is still there, but this one page simplifies it greatly. I actually logged into it in one of my environments and turned on some new features that I didn't know existed because they were all preview features, but that was fun to find them, and it was nicely done. I thought it was also a really nice touch in that in this article, it lets you know if you didn't just use the Sales Hub and you wanted to put this page into your custom model-driven app that was delivering the sales experience for your sales users and the admins that are administering your custom app, that they gave you the actual instructions for how to go put this specific URL for that page into your model-driven app to enable it wherever you'd like to drop it. So nicely done. And that's all the things that I had found that were worth talking through in detail, Dan. And I'm going to let you jump in and turn it over and talk all other good things for finance operations.
I found an
HR.
extra one because
Oh,
it's like, what is interpolated string, right? So what it is, I thought that was kind of interesting. So it's highlighted right here. An interpolated string is a string that is literal, that contains interpolation expression. When an interpolated string is resolved to a result string, items in the interpolation expressions are replaced by the string representations of the expression results. So here's an example, and this is actually C#. So if you look at this, so the first one is the formatted, like the composite formatting. It says hello on today, whatever. So it's kind of cryptic. And then the string interpolation below it is like, hello, what's the name? Today is the date, day of the week, so on and so forth. So it just actually just makes it easier to read. So I thought that was pretty interesting. So I learned something new today.
well, there
All
you
right,
go.
there we go. So let's start out with like what's Business Central. So there's a nice blog here on Business Central. And the blog is about connected tools. Now, all of these tools I've talked about in prior shows, so there's nothing new here. But I thought this is really interesting because it puts it together and it explains it really well. And my customers often know that they have individual components or features or technologies within the system that they can use, but oftentimes it's just overwhelming and they can't put it all together. I look at it as, it's like, they have a bunch of puzzle pieces, but they don't have the picture to put it together sometimes. And this actually does a really nice job of putting it together on what's available. So, connected workflows and what we're doing with connected workflows and co-pilots on that. So some things on Teams and collaboration and embedding that directly within Teams itself. And all the different things and the actions and the collaboration they can take in part with that. The Excel integrations is like, going through the task and pulling the raw data out and things like that. But Outlook, and I've talked about this before, but Outlook in Business Central have a really nice relationship, because you can go within Outlet. You can actually look at the customers within the inbox. It's like there's the customer related to a record within that customer, just like you can in in sales itself. You can like get email reminders within Business Central that sync up with Outlook, and you can do things like a quote from an Outlook. So that's directly into that, and that's much better than what finance and supply chain does. There's also talks a little bit about the AI and the co-pilots on there. So I just thought this is a nice article. If you're using Business Central, it's worth a read. So that kind of brings us to update 23.4 for Business Central. And so there's a few things on this, actually just a couple I want to talk about. Now, there's an update for any of you in Spain. This is doing for the SII documents. Basically, these are documents you have to send to the government to validate these things are. And for each of the transactions, you need a form with it. Oftentimes, there's a transaction, but they're all within multiple ones within one form. And you'll get what's called a fractura duplicata error. Well, this just basically says like, okay, it maps it out so we know what documents from the API are going into that. So it doesn't give you that error. The second thing is something I talked about on the last show with finance and supply chain, but this is in Business Central. This is the VAT e-submission for Denmark. So update for that. Not a ton on Business Central this month, and there's not a ton on HR. And the only update that we have for 10.0.39, and there's 6 additional languages. And so they're all Spanish, but localized for Bolivia, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Guatemala, Peru, and Venezuela. So you're going to say the same thing within finance and supply chain too when we go through that with the cross application updates. So that's what's new in those components. Let's get over to finance and supply chain. Now, there's a new update for the WMS mobile app, and we've had the WMS mobile app. We rejiggered it last year, and it's like it's just a whole lot easier to work with and use. We made it even better now. So with this, we made it so you can do single sign-on identification using ADFS as well. Before, you had to have a login that was set up within supply chain, and then you give it to the user, and that's different than using Entra or ADFS with that. So that just makes it easier to do that. The authentication is easier. It's a more stable, more improvements in that. So less interruptions for connections within the utilizing the system. There's also some updates in scaling and usability. So it didn't scale as easily, but now we can go like half scale or 400% scale. So it's just easier to to match the device. Or as Bart and I are both wearing glasses today, sometimes we're not wearing those, and we might need to scale it up a little bit to actually use it. So some updates in the WMS experience there. This one is, I was kind of debating whether I wanted to put this in, but I think it's a value. Now, Microsoft is named a leader in the IDC MarketScape for finance and supply chain. Well, that's nice, right? Basically validates all your users out there that it's like, okay, we're investing on this. It's like, and we're moving up as in recognition from the experts in the market, the evaluators. But if you look at this, it's like, we're ahead of SAP and when it comes to strategies, just a little bit behind Oracle on this, and we're near neck and neck with the capabilities of SAP. Oracle's just a little ahead of us on that. But so the reason I kind of debated whether we needed to add this or not, because it's like, do you really need to know that? But sometimes you do. Sales guys, they certainly need to know that. Our partners need to know that to validate that with their customers, and the customers often have to validate their choice, or maybe like a division, a smaller division or a hub and spoke thing with using Microsoft. And often they use that for documentation to validate their choices and things. So I thought that was nice. But one thing in there that I thought was really nice that they talked about was they said, consider Microsoft when searching, for well-established providers, right? Because we innovate quickly and effectively. We have people are looking for. There's a higher demand for analytics and reporting and visualization tools and AI, and we have all of that. So that's it's a really good article to talk about it. And then there's a link in here that I wanted to click on too. So as you're going through and doing an evaluation and an implementation for these, you know, how do you look for the right one? How do you select the right partners? What do you want to consider? You know, things, tips and tricks on the implementation and the post-implementation things you want to consider. So I thought that was just good advice all the way around for a business application selection and execution. So again, you know, we're up there in the leaders with the IDC report. Now let's get down to some feature function stuff, right? When I spend most of my time on this, and there's been a lot of updates within finance. This last the last show we did, I did supply chain. Today I'm going to go through finance. So as I mentioned with HRs, there's 6 additional languages, so that's good. There's also a new invoice center, and this replaces the vendor invoice automation workspace. But this one has got capabilities for exception handling and also integrated with the Copilot. So that's going to be deprecated, and now we have the new invoice vendor invoice center for that. The next thing, was the document type for transferred invoice, right? So you can actually have the different document type transfer when you actually do the accounts payable, the invoice capture for the OCR. So we know what kind of document type, whether it be a sales or purchase order, especially for that intercompany stuff across legal entities. There's also support for a transfer of financial dimensions on the header of the cost invoice. So, you know, whether that be department, work center, business unit, whatever it might be, it can that actually be transferred over to the invoice capture. Well, that's useful when you say it's like, okay, like we need that department head or who is ever in charge of that department to actually approve that invoice. That's going to be captured and transferred over from that dimension, from that header. So that redirect is like streamlines the whole workflow process and the invoice process as we go through. A couple small things, we add the PO requesters, the purchase order requester on the order, as well as the invoice approver onto that. So again, it helps improve the workflow. Just use like, okay, if I am the PO requester, it's going to be transferred across as I'm just like the approver is going to be probably my manager Sandy, who's in Chicago. Things like that. There's some new advancements in the modern bank reconciliation. So we've done some usability and performance improvements on that. So the bank rec worksheets, we're able to clear by the different company transactions, generate the vouchers, settle the open transactions. All those things are able to clear those within the reconciliation. Petty cash is now a global feature instead of just a US feature. And this is something I've talked about a couple shows ago. So customer and vendor netting are now fully viable within 10.0.39. Now, this eliminates the have to have a vendor payment and a customer voucher and match those up. It actually clears those, so you don't actually have to go into each one and do that. So it's a feature that I've been hoping for quite a while, and now it's available. So, also on cash and bank management, the automatic clearing of bridge transactions through the advanced bank reconciliation. Now, a bridge account is one that's like, okay, we were going to pay a vendor or get paid, but so typically what it is it's like you'll debit that or credit that account as easy do, but it doesn't clear the bank. So what this does is it creates a bridge account to say, hey, we are paying that, but it hasn't cleared the bank account yet. So do the bridging account, and when that does clear, let's reverse both of those and update those accounts appropriately. So that's available in the advanced reconciliation now too. A couple things on exchange rates. So I've talked about exchange rates probably about 3 or 4 shows ago that we've done some enhancements, but we've also done some enhancements on payables and receivable for that currency valuation. So with that currency valuation for AR and AP, we can actually define the exchange rate and the reporting currency rate for that legal entity. We can also do it by customer or by vendor group. So you can actually have like different customers, different exchange rates, okay, on that, or maybe by vendor group, they can do that. And of course, you always have the ability to override that. So it just makes it simpler and easier to work with. Same thing with, the bank foreign currency valuation. The last big feature on this is Universal Tax Rate API. So we made it simplified it so it's just one API to go across that's universal across any of the different tax engines that we're going to use to make it simpler to work with. So those are the big features within 10.0.39 within finance. Now, there's a few things in cross-platform that I want to talk about. So this goes across the whole finance and supply chain platform. So the first
One
thing
quick note,
is,
Dan.
yep.
I also just mentioned, since it's there, Finance Copilot just had an update published in the solution framework. So if you're using it, go ahead and update that when you update to 39.
Yep. And remember, you have to do that in the Power Platform Admin Center, folks,
Correct.
right? So, okay, so that good update, good catch on that, Bart. So within cross platforms, so first of all, we're removing the SHA1 algorithm, right, for, which is for ISV licensing. Apparently, it is susceptible to breaches and attacks, so that's been deprecated. We're replacing the Microsoft Graph Mail Provider for the web client integration for mail, and since we're deprecating the Exchange provider, and that's no longer going to work as of September 2024. So you're forewarned, everybody. The next thing is auto blocking of high volume notification rules. So if some Yahoo sets up a notification rule, so anytime anybody enters like a sales order for maybe over $10, it's going to like send all kinds of notifications or whatever, and they should have been over like $100,000 or something like that, some sort of exceptional thing. So first of all, you can actually define and create rules about how you're going to monitor things. So if things are just like bogging on your system, you can actually see that. And so you can monitor that to see what's happening, create those rules, and then kill the things that don't make any sense. So just another way to make sure that the system's adherent to performance. Next thing is just clean stale data from batch jobs. Just basically clears some of the old batch jobs. Some of those is like, automatically clear within 30 or 60 days anyways. This next thing I talked about, like in 10.0.34 on the update, and this is a row version change tracking. What this allows us to do is to sync the finance and supply chain database with the Dataverse. It just makes it a whole lot simpler. So any row changes, we'd be able to track those and be able to update those a whole lot easier within Dataverse. Well, it was in preview in 10.0.34. Now it's default in 10.0.39. So just be aware of that.
It's also
And
required for Link to Fabric to work, just so you know.
Yep, good catch there. And the last thing I have is, we can enable finance and supply chain user impersonation into the Dataverse. It just makes, security just a whole lot easier to manage. So that's what's new in my world of the ERP business apps, Bart. So, and of course, you have some solution updates, as Bart had kind of mentioned before. And if you look at some more updates under the some of the releases and documentation. But with that, that's all I have today, Bart.
Look at that. We are going to have a half-hour show almost on the nose today. Good job.
It's a spring miracle.
It is. Even if it's not officially spring quite yet, but it feels springish.
Meteorological spring starts next week, and by the time we do the next show, it will be spring. Yep, that's what I'm looking forward to.
I'll take it.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for joining, everyone, and we'll see you all in 2 weeks.
All right. See everybody. All right.